All right.
Welcome back, my little survivors, to another episode of 30, Flirty, and Surviving. I am Tracy, and new episodes every single week, Monday, 9 a.m. You can catch them on YouTube, Spotify, iHeart, and Apple Podcasts. And in the meantime, if you're looking for more, follow along on Instagram at 30, Flirty, Surviving. I have someone joining me today, of course, as always. She is a board certified therapist. She is a crystal connoisseur. She is a meditation guru, but above all, she is my very, very best friend, Miss Monica Williams.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming out today and joining me.
That was the best intro ever. Thank you.
I mean, I think I hit all the necessary points, all the most important things.
Absolutely.
So Monica and I have been friends for 6 years, 5 years? 5 years now. We actually met while I was living in California. So yes, she is joining us today all the way from the West Coast.
Yes.
We've talked about having you come on. We even thought maybe we'll do a Zoom at one point, but luckily it worked out that you were visiting and we could actually get you live in person in the studio.
Yes.
It is rather chilly outside today. How are you bearing the East Coast weather?
I mean,
she has her jacket on. I think that says it all.
Yeah, but that was the point. I wanted to have a little bit of an East Coast winter weekend. So we got to do that.
Mission accomplished. Mm-hmm. Mission accomplished. Okay, so if you guys are wanting to learn a little bit more about Monica, on social media, her Instagram handle is monica.e.williams, and she actually has a website, www.williamsmonica.com, and if we're going to dive into a little bit about her credentials, her background, we're going to talk about some mental health stuff today. I feel like this dreary weather gets everybody down, and so it's kind of a good time to have that conversation, and if afterwards you're interested in potentially chatting with her or learning more about her services and how you can connect with her. Outside of the website, you can also find her on psychologytoday.com and therapyden.com, right?
Yes.
So if they were to just go to one of those websites and search for your name, you'd pop up.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm going to start with the little bit of the background first, give people the scoop. Okay. So if they were to pull up your website, the first thing that they see is that it says Monica Williams, LPCC and LEP.
Yes.
For us lay people, what do those terms mean?
So LEP is licensed educational psychologist. So my background is I started as a school psychologist. So I was working in high school with teenagers, and so that's where my foundation of psychology came to be. And then LPCC stands for licensed professional clinical counselor. So that's where my therapy license comes in.
Okay.
So no longer school-based, and now I work in mental health generally with adults and kids.
So you've really come a long way too. I think you had to do working around the clock from having a full-time job, working in school with students, and then simultaneously this little side hustle of getting your own business off the ground, up and running. And now you've really broadened your horizons in terms of the type of people you can assist, or maybe the demographic of people that you can assist, and also being able to work fully independently as well, right?
Yeah.
So girl boss alert. I am so proud of you. I mean, I've seen all the hard work, everything you've done on the back end, and I really, really know how passionate you are about this and how much you care about people and helping them. So that's just a little proud bestie moment. I'm very, very, very happy for you. So right now, if outside of the school stuff, so what would you say is the main age group that you've been focusing on in your more clinical counseling area?
I love working with what we call transitional youth. So it's right when they hit, between the ages of 17 and 25. That time of your life is so special. And I think it's so pivotal because it's really driving you to who you're going to be as an adult, right?
Yeah.
You turn 18 and legally you're an adult, but you don't know the first thing about
Not even
who
close,
you are. And I just love that phase of our life because I feel like it's the self-discovery. So I really like to work with clients in finding who they are and And, that means everything that they love about themselves, everything that they want to grow. I don't like to say what we don't like about ourselves. I like to say where we want to grow and things that we want to learn to love about ourselves. And I think that age range is just the time.
Goes to show how good you are. You know exactly how to word it, exactly how to put it. But I love that because we've talked about this on our show before. Like, it's about finding the tools, like, and hopefully finding them sooner rather than later. Yeah. And so the fact that you are giving that age group or that demographic the attention, like, is setting them up for success so that when you hit your 30s, you're not fully lost. You have some of those resources and like that tool belt, to be able to navigate these situations.
Live life more intentionally, I wish that I had the wherewithal to get a therapist when I was 18 years old. Life would have been a lot more easy. Just like with giving yourself grace too. I think about how hard you are in yourself every time you make a mistake. So having someone that you can talk to, that you're going to feel like they're not judging you and they're not telling you what a horrible decision you made, but like helping you grow through that decision and really analyzing, why did I make that choice? What is that? What was the underlying decision there?
Yeah, like uncovering what's really like going on under the surface a little bit. And regardless of, you do, of course, like if there was someone outside of that age group, like if they were older or younger, like you do help all ages.
Absolutely, yes.
Are there specific areas of care though that you specialize in terms of like the mental health umbrella?
Yeah, so I do. I have clients from the ages of 12 all the way to 36. So, and that's always growing, but that's just kind of like my area that I've been really
it's like close to home for you.
Right, exactly. But in terms of what we work on, self-esteem is really important for me. I think if you have a strong foundation of accepting who you are, that's going to help with all the other areas of mental health. Anxiety and depression obviously is just so great right now, especially through this pandemic, and people are feeling lost and they don't know. We've
all
how
felt
to
it
navigate.
at some point. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, I think it's no secret that over the last couple of years, especially with just the accessibility of social media and stuff, there's been an enormous breakthrough in terms of destigmatizing mental health, because it has been a taboo topic in the past. Yeah. It has been something that's a hard conversation for people, but it's getting more awareness. People are talking about it more, admitting to it more, being more open about it. Why do you think that's been the case, and why we've had such growth in that area?
One of the many blessings of COVID. There have been some very small, there have been a lot of really big things that have come from COVID that would be considered blessings, in my opinion. And one of that is just awareness of mental health. We kind of decided as a collective, because everyone was going through the same thing. And most people were feeling that low grade depression or high levels of anxiety just because of what we were going on in our life. And so I think just as a collective, we all decided, okay, I think we can do this together. Like, let's make this not a big deal, and let's make mental health like so accessible for everyone.
Yeah. Well, it's like that realization of like, we're all in the same boat a little bit. So it's okay to talk about it, because you're going to feel more understood, or like someone else is in the same shoes that you are. So it just makes it a little bit easier to start addressing those type of things. Yeah, that's true. I love that little silver lining. Yes. That's a very good point. Okay. So I want to ask you a couple more specific questions about mental health in particular.
Okay.
But I want to start off by asking you what you think the biggest misconception is when it comes to mental health itself.
Well, I think that, a lot of people, like most physical impairments, you can see when someone has a physical impairment. With mental health, you can't see. So someone might appear that they're having the best day and they're smiling and they're laughing, and then they get home and just everything comes crashing down, and their depression resurfaces, right? So just because you can't see it or they look like they're having a great day doesn't mean that they always are. And I think that's the biggest misconception of.
That's so true. It's almost like our strength is not a flaw, but like it can almost be a hindrance in a way, because if you think about it, I can't fake that I don't have a broken ankle. I can't pretend like my femur is split in two.
Yeah.
But if I'm feeling really anxious and depressed, you can't fake it and put on a smile.
Most people do. They don't want to show that they're feeling a certain way. The vulnerability. That's why most people don't do therapy, is because it's such a vulnerable state to be in, and we are so uncomfortable by that. And so we push those experiences away. So if you can just get through your 9-to-5 job and 8 hours out of your day, you can just put on a smiley face and get through it. When you get home, it's like that you cannot give that much energy to it anymore. So.
And that's a good reminder, like, for us too, to like treat other people with kindness too, because like I think there's that misconception to that point is like, well, she's been smiling and laughing all day long. Or like you see girls like post things, oh, she went to lunch and had a day. Like, she's fine. What is she talking about? She's upset. She's crying. She's not feeling well or not feeling herself. Is being able to like give those allowances and that little bit of room for people, like, and not discredit or take away what they're actually feeling, because they shouldn't have to be faulted for trying to push themselves or trying to feel better, because sometimes that's like all we have, you know? That's a good point. But with that being said, do you feel like as a therapist, there's misconceptions about you, this being your profession and your mental health?
I think one of the hardest parts about being a therapist is that my mental health has to be up to par all the time. How can I go into session and want to cry? And I'm human too. And I do have those times where I'm just not feeling like myself. And it's really hard for me because I give all of my energy to my clients. That's what they pay me for. You know, they pay me to be present for them and to show up for them. And so, I mean, I exude all of this energy during sessions. And then if I'm not feeling myself at the end of the day, I am wrecked. I'm exhausted. And, you know, so, therapists have therapists. Yeah.
That is so important. Like I love you said, I'm a human too.
Yeah.
Because it is the truth. Yes, you studied this. Yes, this is your profession. You're an expert in this field.
Yeah.
But like, you have emotions. You have chemicals in your brain. You have a shit day as well. And sometimes you still need that like sounding board or that like shoulder or whatever.
Yeah.
Just like your clients do.
Yeah. And you know, this is a new age of therapy, right? The OG therapists go into session and they have no emotion and they're just quiet and they listen and they don't always have a lot to offer. They let their clients do the most of the talking. New age therapists is we are smiling and laughing with our clients. Yeah. And, you know, we do offer some, you know, sometimes it's appropriate self-disclosure. So I'm not expected to just go in there and be a robot. Right. So clients do understand that I have my own set of emotions too.
Yes, because I know friends who have gone to, you know, finally work up the courage, right? Yeah. I'm going to go see a therapist. And this was really hard for me to make this decision, but I know that I need it. And then after 2 sessions, they're like, I'm just not connecting to that person. And I feel like silly spewing all my shit in my head or just telling them how I feel when there seems like to be a little bit of a wall. Yeah. And so there is a level of personability, I guess, or like to have to like be able to relate and connect, because otherwise they're not going to want to really open up to you.
Well, and they don't feel, humans want connection. I mean, that's like an innate quality that we all have, is to connect. And so imagine like someone with depression or even autism or something, they go throughout their day and they don't feel connected to people. Then they have 1 hour out of their week where they just want to be able to connect, and just like a soul connection is a lot of therapy too, right? So yeah, I mean, if you go in there and you know, every person has a different style of therapy that they're going to relate to. My clients tend to be more appreciate more of the emotional connection that we are able to get in session. And, you know, not to say that I'm in there crying with my clients. No. Of course, you know, there's a level of boundary that I have to set as well. But I think that's one of the reasons why my clients stay, is because they do feel like they can connect with me and that they trust me to, you know, create this non-judgmental environment.
As another level to that, do you notice if you have a higher percentage of female clients versus male clients? Because I wonder if women, like for me, I would be drawn to a female therapist because, again, I don't want to be BFFs with her, but I would imagine that a lot of the feelings I'm having, a lot of the maybe situations I'm going through, she has potentially gone through as well. And so that would be a real pull for me to feel like she at least speaks my language if I'm going through. Do you see that there's more women, or is it kind of like 50-50?
No, there's definitely more women, but I think it has more so to do with women's tendency to be more open,
more evolved,
and men
to
don't
go to
always
therapy.
want to be vulnerable in session.
Interesting.
They go. Not all men. I have several men clients, but a lot of men choose other avenues to kind of release. And
why do you think that is?
Well, societal norms. It's not acceptable to cry. I mean, I've had clients, not every client is comfortable crying in session. And so when you grow up as a male and you're told that crying, be a man and just ignore your emotions or get angry instead, it's not as comfortable to do that.
I have to say, I do feel for men in that way. Men drive me crazy 99% of the time, but I do. It's like, it's this push and pull for men. Like, as when we're dating them, we want them to be vulnerable and we want them to communicate with us, but then we also want them to be our protectors and strong. And then like in the workplace.
How confusing is that?
That must be such a internal conflict for them. Yeah, it really must be difficult. And so with that being said, like, I am really glad that there has been such a push for men's mental health and that awareness, and like having athletes speak out about it and normalizing it a little bit for them.
And I also think, I think that you choose a therapist based on who you feel like you're going to relate to the most. And even though I'm not going in there and talking about myself, I do think certain age groups are going to be more gravitated towards me because of my age and what they might, think that I can relate to them. So I think that has a lot to do with the type of clients that I attract to. And then some people do want someone that's exactly opposite of them, like to
see different perspectives, that sort of thing. That's a good point. So I know you touched on it a little bit when you were talking about the age group of the clients that you primarily have, but maybe taking it a step further, when you first decided, I want to be a therapist, I want to be a psychologist, why was mental health, or why was this career path so important to you personally?
I'm just one of those people, I always knew I was going to be. I thought, child psychology was my original, which it still is. But I started to gravitate more towards adults. And I think just because of my experience in my 20s, like I was saying, I wish that I had someone that could kind of guide me. That's another misconception about therapy. I'm not here to give you advice. I'm guiding you on your journey and helping you make choices that feel the most authentic to you. So I'm never, a lot of times clients will come in like, what do I do? I'm like, I don't know. What do you do? And they get so annoyed because it's like, but that's not what therapy
that's not what you're there
is.
for.
Yeah. So it's for you.
And also it's probably a huge liability for you as well. And in some situations, right? Like they're going to come back and be like, you told me. Yeah.
But also I think just, growing up in my 20s and making a lot of decisions that didn't feel authentic to me. Now, in my 30s, I really strive to make intentional decisions. It's like my favorite word right now is, with intention, because then you really feel connected to yourself. And I think, being able to guide people to make those kinds of decisions, it just sets you up for the rest of your life. And it removes some of that anxiety. And when you have depression, you don't feel connected to who you are. And so each step that you take, each choice that you make that gets you closer and closer to you, that's going to subside a lot of those symptoms.
Ooh, I just got chills. I love that. I love that. And I love that it like all comes back full circle too. And like I've talked about that before. Last year when I was like, what's 30 mean to me? I said on the show, I said, doing things with more intention.
Right.
And you're not able to do that unless you really like A, know who you are, but B, kind of like have tried and failed and have given yourself that like courtesy to like just grow and take your time with things and mature too. Half of it is just maturing and getting older. And there's just no such thing as failure. That's like that's one of the main things I want my clients to leave session is you're not failing. Every mistake that you make, every choice that you make
that you're not proud of is getting you closer and closer to the choices that do make you feel proud and connected to who you are. We have to fail. Imagine if you didn't fail at all since you were a little girl and then you grow up. And
how do you know? Yeah.
You don't feel trust in yourself when you don't make mistakes, that you can get yourself out of those mistakes.
Yes.
That there's no trust that you can. That's where a lot of anxiety comes from, because it's how do I get myself out of this situation? Do I even have the capability to do that?
Yeah.
So we have to fail.
When I hit rock bottom, I feel like that's when I make most of my leaps and bounds, is because when push comes to shove, how do I handle the situations?
Yeah.
And that's when you learn a lot about yourself. So it's always not being not having regrets and not beating yourself up or kicking yourself, but actually taking that as an opportunity and being able to, again, find that silver lining.
Yeah.
That silver lining. So I think one of the other things that is difficult for people is the admission of I feel like I'm struggling. And I think that I don't want to make generalizations, but I do think a common sort of apprehension is the distinguish, I don't want to be labeled I'm being over dramatic or I'm being a baby, overreacting. And so the label of mental health feels like sometimes those types of opinions will follow. But is there any sort of key indicator or maybe not symptoms, I don't know if that's the right word, but moments where if someone's feeling like they're struggling, to be able to say, no, I know that I'm not being dramatic. This isn't just a bad situation or a bad day, and know the difference between that versus a mental health issue or crisis
Well, there's a couple things I want to say about this. First is that we tend to minimize our struggles and we compare, and have you ever heard someone say they're starving kids in Africa, you're okay. And that
Kim Kardashian's diamond earrings, there's babies or just dying babies in Africa.
Which is true. If we did really make that comparison, then sometimes that's helpful for people. But a lot of times that just minimizes your situation and makes you feel like you can't talk about this, because why am I complaining when my life is great and I have a roof over my head and food to eat every morning? And so the second thing I want to say about that is there is a difference between a clinical diagnosis and having symptoms or characteristics of anxiety or depression or whatever it might be, right? And so does it matter which one is necessary for therapy? Not really, because at the end of the day, we're all going to benefit from therapy.
Right.
Everyone's mental health can grow and self-awareness and all of those things. So yes, there are clinical diagnoses. And here's one of the issues with the internet is that everyone's Googling.
Yep.
So you're like, I have this. And yes, you likely do. But does that mean that you have a clinical diagnosis of depression or anxiety? Maybe not. And so that's when a professional is going to be supportive. And regardless if you leave session and your therapist is saying, you don't have, this isn't a clinical diagnosis, these are symptoms. That doesn't mean that you wouldn't want to keep going to therapy, because we all want to learn how to manage those symptoms. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, we've all experienced symptoms of depression and symptoms of anxiety and a little bit of ADHD and all of those things. So these are, like you said, it's just tools to help you kind of lead your best life.
So would you say it's safe to say, if someone is teetering back and forth of that uncertainty of whether or not this is just a tougher time versus maybe there's something bigger here, just always err on the side of caution.
Always
therapy is never gonna be harmful. You know what I mean? It's never gonna hurt your progress. It's only gonna help.
Yeah.
And if you go in there and you discover that there is something greater going on, then fantastic.
Yeah.
If not, you vented, you got it out for a little bit, and now you feel better. And sure, maybe you don't need to continue. But it's never going to be detrimental. So if you're on the fence, just go for it.
Right. And obviously in emergency situations where you're feeling like your life is in danger, you always want to call 911.
Right.
And I think just having a therapist to kind of help you determine, again, what's the best decision for you? Is medication something I should be looking into? Do I need more treatment? Do I need something that we call an IOP, intensive outpatient program? Do I need to be in therapy more than just 1 hour 1 hour out of your week? It's not a lot.
I know.
Imagine, we have 24 hours in a day. So a lot of people start out with the greater service. And so you don't have to be the one to make those choices.
Where do you stand on medication?
Because
I think it is like a polarizing thing for people because they feel like it's going to change them and that it's going to make them more crazy. Mm-hmm. But then there's also people who've really benefited from it. So
yes. And I think that it's a personal choice. Some diagnoses, I think it's a personal choice. Many diagnoses, I think it's necessary for treatment. Mm-hmm. So again, you don't have to make this decision on your own. The best knowledge is power. And so going in there and weighing all of your options of different types of medications, they can do blood tests where they decide which medication is going to be best for your chemistry and your, and in your brain. And so don't make these decisions alone. We can't. Yeah. No decision has to be made alone. I mean, think about the last decision you made by yourself. You really didn't. You consulted, you thought about it. Maybe you called your dad. Most decisions, especially
she's my best friend. She knows me too well. Whenever I'm like on the fence, Kev, what's going on? What should I do?
Yeah. So I think medication is a personal choice. And I think it's something that if you're thinking about medication, consult with a doctor because it's in your mind for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So while we're deliberating at home, while I'm trying to figure out if this is a bad period of time, if I have a mental health issue, should I go on medicine? Should I not go on medicine? Do you have any tips or tricks for people that they can do at home without consulting a therapist, without a third party, just like something we can do for ourselves in those moments where we need to either get back down to reality, find a little stability? Where to start?
So, there are a lot of things that you can do before medication. So if your quality of life is okay and comfortable and you're not suicidal and you are able to manage your symptoms without medication, then there are some other things that you can do to just enhance that, right? Because, medication is meant to kind of be the foundation, like the starting point to help you get, be able to manage the symptoms, right? So like, for example, I tell a lot of my clients with depression, look, medication's going to help you do the things that you don't want to do. It's like the motivating factor, right? So at home, exercising is like number one because all of those chemicals in our brain that we don't produce when we have anxiety or depression, exercising can help us produce those naturally. Same thing with food, even the sun. I said to you the other day, do you ever miss the sun?
I was like, I swear the sun does come out on the East Coast once in a while.
And it did. But the sun, when, the rays hit our brain, we produce serotonin. That is the chemical that we're missing when we have depression. So yes, there's a lot of things that you can do to enhance your mental health. And we also have to think about our bodies being like this clock, so a regular, like having a schedule, going to sleep hygiene is just so important.
I need to get better about my sleep cycle. I'm like the person that will stay up until 3:00 in the morning. I just can't fall asleep. And I notice my mood the next day.
Yeah.
I'm drained. Right. I'm drained. And so if one inconvenience happens to me, I'm way more likely to go like unhinged because I'm not in my right state of mind. Yeah. So, okay, sleep, exercise, which sounds so basic, but of course.
It's true. There's a
what
reason
you put into your body, what you eat, water. All of those things, water, and more that too.
You know me with meditation. I mean, meditation changed my life. It truly changed my life. When I started to have a regular meditative practice, I was able to regulate my emotions better. I was less reactive. My decisions were more intentional. Yep. I slept better. I felt happier and like more positive about life. And, there is such a thing as poisonous positivity, right? We don't want to just say, okay, but here's the bright side. Not always can we look at the positive. We don't want to minimize our problems, but when you start to change the brain chemistry and your thoughts start to shift, naturally you're just going to think more positively about things, which makes you feel happier. So meditation is scary for a lot of people. You imagine the person with their legs crossed and their eyes closed and they're just silent in the abyss. And that's more so like old school meditation, because I mean, think about how much our brain is constantly stimulated throughout the day.
Yeah.
Constantly scrolling, constantly stimulated. So, we're not just going to sit in silence for 20 minutes. It's impossible. There's always going to be thoughts coming up in your mind, and that's completely normal. Sometimes you want to explore that thought. Where's that thought coming from? Does it have a deeper meaning? And other times you just return to your breath and you send the thought on your way, and it helps your brain also with things like memory, and also having more focus and, throughout your workday and things like that, because you're literally building that muscle in your brain that helps you focus and all of those things that we think, how did I get to the end of the day? I have no idea what just happened in the last 8 hours, because we're just kind of on autopilot a lot of the time.
Yeah. I love that you threw that in there, because I think this was a perfect time to now also kind of like shift into the more spiritual side of therapy. Like there's like the scientific, the proven, the more clinical, but then there's the other aspect, which is a little bit more like holistic. And, when I made the introduction to you, I said meditation guru, I said crystal connoisseur. Some of these things can be a little, like woo-woo and like maybe not taken as seriously, but there are really positive outcomes that can come from this different side of therapy or self-care that have proven to work. And so I love specifically, I love everything about you. You're my best friend, but what I love so much about you is that you really encourage people to kind of like use both sides and work in tandem with one another. So starting with therapy, with meditation, because you were just kind of talking about that. I will admit, I have loved the idea of it. I've wanted to get into it. I do not know how to turn my brain off. And so I've tried it, and I've even used like apps to give me some like guided meditations or podcasts, which kind of help me. For me, my biggest thing is like I always feel my mind wander, and I do try to recenter it and bring it back. But sometimes I'm just like, you know what, now I'm out of it and my time's up and I need to move on to the next thing in my day. What is like, for someone who's struggling to find that little bit of a zen, do you have any advice in that area?
Yeah, well, first of all, there's no right or wrong way to meditate. Even just sitting with your eyes closed and breathing for 30 seconds is a form of meditation. And the more that you do that, the stronger that muscle is going to build in your brain. So yes, maybe you have a tendency to get 2 minutes in and then you start thinking about what you're having for dinner or the email that you didn't send or whatever it is, right? And that's so normal, again, because we're constantly receiving feedback from everything. We have a watch on our wrist, we have the phone in our hand, we have the computer screen, we have so much access to us. So that's why I think meditation is so important, because it's just the connection with you, mind, body, soul. That's kind of like my mantra here. We want to feed our mind. We want to feed our body with exercising and diet. And then the soul piece is the connection when you meditate with yourself, right? You're like literally connecting to your soul and your inner voice. Then that's the other thing about self-esteem, is that voice starts to get quieter when you lack self-esteem and you start to feel your anxiety voice get stronger. We want to grow our inner voice, because that's where our intuition lies, and that's what helps us connect with our authentic decision making and all of those things. So I love the apps, because it's just a
Do you have one in particular?
Calm.
The Calm app. I've used that. I also like My Life. Have you ever heard of that one?
I haven't.
My therapist actually recommended it to me, and it's just like little like 5, 6, 8 minute like guided meditations, because I was like telling her, I'm like, I think I have insomnia. I cannot fall asleep. And she was like, just throw it on at night and just listen to it. They're free, but then, you can pay for, subscriptions or more. But yeah, I feel like that little bit of like a boost kind of helps sometimes.
And the Hatch is really good for that too. It's like a device that you put
I've seen a lot of people with that.
They'll read you sleep stories, or you can choose a certain noise background that you like. And the other really cool thing about it if you have a hard time waking up in the morning, is that there's a feature to, instead of an alarm, it is a light that it mimics the sun rising. Cool. And so when you tell it what time you want to wake up, it'll start to rise slowly so that your brain releases the chemicals to slowly start waking up versus you just waking up all shocked. And then, yeah, it's a really great way to start your day.
Do you have one?
No, I don't. I want one.
I want one. Okay, I'll think of when your birthday comes around. I one of the things that I think, one of the points that you made in that too, I think that's really important to take away is also like taking the pressure off. It doesn't need to be a 15-minute thing where you actually sit in silence. And like, it is human and normal for your brain to wander. And if you can recenter it and bring it back, then that's great. Yeah. But if all you can do is 30 seconds, 1 minute, it's start off there and let that be okay. And you can build up to it, work up to it.
And start with breathing exercises to where it isn't a lot of just quiet. It's intentional breathing, right? So the square breathing is a great way. You do 5 square breaths, which is 4 inhales, 4 pause, and then slowly release.
Oh, that makes sense. Square.
Yeah, square.
Now I get it.
Yeah. Some people do 4-4-4, but I do 4-4-8.
Okay. I like that. Yeah, breathing really does help. It sounds silly, and I feel like sometimes I feel stupid when I'm doing it, but I really notice the effects.
Well, and here's why. Because when we have anxiety, our brain, our body goes into fight or flight mode. So we're releasing all those chemicals of stress and literally life or death, because that's where we started, caveman days. So, and truly, I mean, we still have that brain in our, even though it's evolved, that's where our brain started, right? So when you take a forced breath, an intentional forced breath, you're signifying to your body that it can start to slowly relax and you're not in danger and you're safe. And so then you go to a completely different state in your brain to where your anxiety is just regulated. Right?
I feel like you just talking this through and in your little voice, I'm already like, I think I'm in a therapy session right now. You're just like so calming. It's very peaceful.
Thank you.
I could listen to you talk to me all day long. But what I've really been dying to get into is the crystals.
Yeah.
The crystals. I think when I used to think of crystals, I would think of Heidi and Spencer. Yeah. Remember, he was like a psychopath about them, and he would like wear them and put them on his forehead. And we're like, wow, this guy is...
He knew what he was doing, though.
But I have to give good old Spencer a little bit of credit. Yeah. There is some really wonderful healing powers when it comes to crystals. Yeah. Say, for example, I don't know, maybe Hurley, who knows nothing about crystals. I'm going to assume. I'm going to go out on a limb.
Yeah, that's a good guess.
Okay, yeah. A newbie when it comes to the crystal world. Why crystals, where to start, what to know.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just have to say, like, everyone can find what works for them. And there's no right or wrong when it comes to spirituality. So this is how I connected with spirit, and part of, how I started to connect with spirit. And so it's just something that works for me. So a starter kit, I mean, I suggest you just go into a crystal shop and see what calls you. I mean, if you really have that connection with spirit, universe, God, what we believe in, then you're going to go in there, and whatever calls to you, you're going to pick it up. And then the crystal girl's going to say, or male's going to say, oh, that stone is for prosperity and abundance. So what does that say for you? And it's just fun, it's just a great way to explore like what your needs are.
There is this shop on the South Shore in Boston. It's called Cast a Stone, and I brought Monica there last time that she came to visit me.
Heaven.
I mean, kid in a candy shop, but that's exactly what you did. And like, you were just, sometimes it was like, oh, this is beautiful.
Right.
I like the color. I like the shape. This is like a good size to put like a crystal on display. And so it kind of starts there. And then, the owner of the shop kind of walks around, and he was giving us information about where the crystal came from and what it means, how it was cut, where it was made, all this stuff. And you start to learn that like each of these crystals do have
healing properties, and they have certain frequencies. Everything in life has frequencies, right? So,
right.
I mean, I especially really feel the frequencies. You know, sometimes I'll hold a selenite and I'm like, just hold it up to my chest. I'm like, can't you feel the vibrations? My friends are like, I can't feel it. I'm like, I can. So again,
but you have to be open to it too, you know? Okay. So because you said selenite, what's that?
Selenite is a clearing crystal. So I swipe my body when I get home, and as someone who I would consider myself like a sensitive or empathic person. So I, especially in session, I'm constantly taking on other people's emotions. So I have to be really careful of what's my energy and my emotions, and also what I'm bringing home from clients or friends or, you know, coworkers. So when I get home, I swipe my body with my selenite wand and I just clear other people's energy and emotions. And then I feel, you know, more, again, it's just another way for me to stay more connected with me.
I love that. And then so different ways to use crystals, right? So you mentioned clearing energy. People use crystals in like Reiki and placing it in certain areas of their body, maybe like aligning it with the different chakras and sort of coordinating what the healing power is to that chakra. What other ways can people use crystals?
Well, I like to at least hold one in my hand when I'm meditating. Sometimes I don't, but if sometimes it's comforting for me, especially if I'm feeling a little anxious. You know, I'll get a black stone, which is more of the grounding, protecting stone, or purple is also associated with stress, like amethyst or lepidolite. So if I'm feeling that way, and I
thought you said Pedialyte.
Lepidolite. It's actually the Xanax of the crystal. Lepidolite. And I like to sleep with them. I put them in my bed.
Okay, like under your pillow, or like
sometimes I like crevice them in my body, you know, because I just
do you wash them after? No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I'm clothed, but you know, I'll put them next to me, and it helps me sleep.
And I have it's black tourmaline, which is really for like protection. And when I moved into my sister's, because I live with her in her condo, when I first moved in, you know, the space was a little foreign, a little unfamiliar, but also it took like a little bit of adjusting just because it's new. Not that there's anything wrong with the place. It's amazing. But I got like a sphere of it and have it near my doorway, or by my bed, the closest to my door, as sort of like giving me that little bit of like a barrier and making my room sort of like my sanctuary. So you can like, there's certain stones that you like just placing them somewhere, wherever they're on display.
Yes.
Holding them to your body, all that stuff.
I have my black tourmaline right in my entryway, and I have one right by my bed. And I often have I call them spiritual dreams, psychic dreams.
You do?
I do. And so sometimes I'll wake up and I'm like feeling some sort of energy in my space. And I was going to my Reiki girl, who's like incredible, and I was telling her about these dreams that were so vivid, and I felt like someone was shaking me in my bed, when I was sleeping, and like trying to open doors. And she told me that she gave me one of her black tourmaline, and I'm like obsessed with it. I sleep with every.
Very generous of her.
Oh yeah, she's wonderful. She's the best thing that, you know, one of my person in my life that's really geared me onto my spiritual journey. So she's wonderful.
Again, that could be a whole other episode one day, but like talking about that side of things as well. But one of the other things about crystals too is we hear about charging your crystals. Oh yeah. And when there's a full moon, what's the whole story behind that, and why do we do that? Well,
crystals are a part of the earth, right? So that's when you were saying about the holistic approach, right? It's a way, crystals are a way for me and many people that are connected with them to connect with the earth, to connect with spirit and the universe, and again, your soul, right? So the full moon charging the crystals is you're receiving energy from the moon, you're receiving connection from the earth, and that's then essentially charging your crystals.
Yeah, I love that. And so it's just good to kind of like re-up their healing powers, or just like,
and not every crystal
like charge the battery almost like yeah,
yeah, exactly. And it kind of if other people are touching your crystals, then they're giving their energy to the crystals. So it kind of resets that too.
Okay.
Not every single stone needs to be charged. It's also a part of like manifesting, if you're doing a full moon ritual or a new moon ritual and you kind of want to solidify it. A lot of this is it's all symbolism, right?
Yeah.
Like in session, if I have a client that's wanting to release something, we write it down and then we toss it and we rip it up and throw it away. It's all symbolism. What is a healing factor for you? What's going to make you feel like you're taking the steps to, a different part of your life when you manifest, right? You're writing down the things that you want.
Yeah.
So then you just solidify it when you put it out in the moon and the moon's charging your crystals and your piece of paper's out there with it. It's all just symbolism of what feels right for you when it comes to your spiritual energy and emotional energy and all of those things.
I love that. I love, I think it's very unique that being in the profession that you're in, you are so open to these other sort of methodologies or different ways. And I think it's really special that you're able to and willing to talk about it. And because I think that the whole purpose is really like, you're not saying, oh yeah, you have to go to therapy. Oh yeah, you should do your crystals, but it's letting people be aware of what the options are and finding what works for them. And if it is a 360 approach where they do a little bit of everything, that's great.
Right.
If, sometimes insurance, they can't see a therapist. It's hard. So if they can do the crystal stuff at home and they connect to that, then explore that option. Right. And I think that like just making it seem, giving the credibility to it that it deserves and having it come from you as someone who is such an expert in this space, I think gives people a lot of incentive to just give it a try,
Yeah. And here's the thing, like spirituality is another form of mental health, right? When you feel like you have something that you believe in and that you connect with that's bigger than all of us here on earth, that's going to help you in so many different avenues, right?
Yeah.
So it's about hope. It's about connection. It's about just, standing in your light and we all want to become our best self. How do you do that? Well, when you connect with the higher power, you're getting closer and closer to that. So that's why I don't like to focus on, what it is that I believe in, because we all have our own thing.
Yeah.
And in session, if a client's, talking to me about their spiritual connection with God or the Bible or whatever it might be, that's a wonderful, that's exactly what I want my clients to do.
Because you're not there to like judge that, like whatever they connect to is like, and being able to be open minded and accepting.
Yeah. And a lot of people have come from, had the hardest moments with their mental health, and then they find their connection with God or universe and their whole life changes. So it's just, I love guiding people on that journey.
Yeah. And I think what's really cool about the spiritual stuff is that if there is someone who's maybe a little unsure about the religious tie specifically, spiritually, it's a little bit different. So it's a little bit less restrictive or like, And
it's natural when you hit the age of 18, 19, 20 that you're going to start questioning some of the beliefs that was instilled in you as a child, because that's what we do. We become our own person.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you're not going to believe in it. It's just exploring, curiosity.
Love that. So before I let you go, want to like kind of wrap this up with a little bit of closing notes because, with this show, I really like to make it a safe place. We want to talk about a lot of different topics and have different conversations. And we haven't talked about mental health in a while. And so I'm really appreciative for you being here. But for those who have listened to the episode, if you had one final or your biggest piece of advice that you really want them to just take away from this information or anything that you've shared, what would be your like your closer? What would be your one final statement?
Find what works for you and stick with it. Mental health is a practice. So having something that you do consistently, whether that's exercising, meditating, journaling is huge. Stick to it. Find consistency, because our bodies thrive on consistency and routine. And so if you have something that you can rely on and that this is something that I have control over and I can do each day, a little bit of it each day, that's just going to help with your, embracing who you are and what works for you, and really kind of changing the trajectory of your mental health.
I love that. Don't give up, because it's a process. It's not something that is going to be changing overnight.
Yeah. And it's, just thinking about my spiritual journey and all the work that I put into it. Sometimes I get confident. I'm like, I don't need to meditate today.
Yeah.
And then I realize, wait a second, why?
That is such a good
just
point.
because I'm feeling good doesn't mean I don't have to continue to do it. And we forget that, because it's the same thing with medication,
That's
right?
so important. So important. Remembering to still take care of yourself when you're having the good times too.
Exactly. Even more so, because again, that's your body's way of just recognizing that this is consistency, and it's just building the foundation for future moments of difficulty.
Yeah. Absolutely. Also, side note, this doesn't have to do with, I think, the whole purpose of today's show, but Hurley, tell me if you agree with me. I think we're going to have to turn this into a drinking game. If we say journaling on the show, people at home that are listening need to take a shot. We talk about journaling so often. I feel like it's like constant. I'm like, journal. And then you mention it. So I think we'll have to do something like that for people.
Journaling,
because it comes up and it's so helpful.
Imagine like how many thoughts you have in your brain all day, and we don't often want to say them out loud. And so this is just something that you can have for you only. And again, it's building that connection with who you are. So much comes through in journaling.
Yeah. Well, it's like a form of therapy, right? Like, just like they're talking to you, you're not guiding them, you are guiding them. You're not telling them what to do or not to do. Just like a journal's not talking back to you. It's the same concept in a way, it's sometimes you have to say it, or sometimes you have to see it on paper to just come to the conclusion that you probably already kind of had in your gut somewhere, or you've already thought about. But when you see everything and then stand back, or like, you hear someone's reaction, or you see it on paper, like, it helps you just feel the confidence to like do what your gut tells you to do,
Yeah. And the best like thing that you can do is meditate first. And then you do a little journal.
Bringing it all together.
Yeah. Because again, like, we don't want to ignore the thoughts that we have when we're meditating. They're there for a reason. Some of them, it's just laundry lists, and those, yes, we can ignore. But a lot of times, like, I call them downloads, where I'll have an idea or something will come to the surface when I'm meditating. I'm like, I have to make sure that I write that down, because there is a reason that it came to me.
That's a good point.
You know what I like to say?
What? Praying
is asking for answers, and meditating is receiving them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, I'm going to remember that one. Well, my love, I cannot thank you enough. I'm so glad we were able to do this. I appreciate your time, taking the time out of our little vacay to come and do this. I think that this is really something that needs to get spoken about more, and I'm very grateful that you get to come on my show and chat about it.
It was so fun.
So guys, once again, Monica is on Instagram at monica.e.williams. Her website is www.williamsmonica.com, psychologytoday.com, and therapyden.com. And I think we talked about this right when we started the show, but like, she does consultations. And so if you ever want to just chat with her about whether or not her, she would be a good fit, or like learn more about how she can help. You can do that through the website and do some inquiries, right?
I always offer 30-minute consult calls to get to know me. And of course, they're free, and because you want to make sure that you're going to connect with the person.
Yeah.
So talking, and also I have to make sure that my scope is going to be appropriate for you too. So being able to kind of like gather that information and determine whether or not this is going to be a good fit is very important.
Perfect. Well, hopefully for all the times that you've given me free therapy as my best friend, you'll get a couple calls and have some new patients after this. But that is going to be it for today, guys. Don't forget our socials, 30 Flirty Surviving, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.